Hey, we're streaming live YouTube. All right. So, Luke, if you would please let folks know that we are going to go live to YouTube. Hey, we're streaming live YouTube. I'm going to turn this off. All right. Oh my God, it's a first. Oh my goodness. Hey, Alex, thank you and welcome to Check the Gate
Hey, thank you
one-on-one.
for having me. Thank you for having me.
It's great to have you. And you're out in LA, is that right?
I am in LA. Yes. Yes. It's the quiet LA nowadays.
As it is here in upstate New York. Hey, I usually like to pour myself a beverage. I've got
Mhm.
some Josh wine. I've got some sparkling Saratoga water. I've got regular water. What do you drink?
Just water is fine.
Just water? Okay, I happen
Yes.
to have a glass here in this funny Canon mug.
Hmm.
So I thought as a filmmaker you might enjoy it. So
I will.
here you go, from New York all the way over. Got it?
Got it. Thank you
Oh,
very
there you
much.
go.
It's quite tasty. Quite tasty.
Oh, you're welcome. All the way from
This
upstate New
Zoom,
York.
these Zoom guys are amazing.
It's all movie
Technology.
magic.
It's technology, I tell you.
I'd say it's saving our ass right now.
Absolutely.
Uh,
Absolutely.
you're doing some amazing things, and
Oh, thank you.
I want to get into all that. If I could just say a few words about our program here.
Sure.
Check the Gate is a weekly program, twice weekly through May 2020, supported by the Capital Cinema Cultural Exchange, Inc., a charitable nonprofit empowering emerging filmmakers to complete and present their projects in a rapidly changing media landscape. And boy, things have changed. By leveraging world-class industry expertise through the Northeast Filmmakers Lab. Thanks to our co-producer, Eric Vollweiler, publicist Tammy Reese, and behind-the-scenes student intern, a Great Dane from UAlbany, Luke Williams. Today's sponsors include Price Chopper Market 32, Albany Wine and Dine, For the Arts, Crew Me Up, Connect, Create, Collaborate. Have you heard of Crew Me Up?
I have not.
New app. I'll tell you about them in a little bit, but it's just, I'll tell you real quick, crewmeup.com. It's the new app for finding crew. Let's say you need a PA, you need a
Yeah.
gaffer,
Yeah.
and you go online and you can get that person and book
That's
them
awesome.
right there. Yayflix.com out of Toronto. This Thursday, our guest includes Emily Best of Seed and Spark. Register now at cinemaexchange.org. And folks, if you can, donate what you can. Help us keep the lights on here and guests throughout the year. Check the gate for those who don't know the term. When the gate is good, production gets to move forward. There's no impurities on the lens. A term that came out of film. And with that, let's move forward. Alex Ferrari is an author, blogger, speaker, consultant, the host of the #1 filmmaking podcast on iTunes, Indie Film Hustle podcast, and an award-winning writer-director with 25 years experience in the film industry. As a director, Alex exploded onto the indie film scene with his award-winning short film Broken, screening at hundreds of international film festivals, and even received a shout-out by the late, great, famed film critic Roger Ebert. Broken is essentially a demonstration of the mastery of horror imagery and techniques, said Roger Ebert. That's so awesome. That's the one thing I wanted, is for him to review my film.
It was, I could
Huge
talk about Roger. Yeah, I could talk about Roger. He was amazing.
Yeah, totally. I used to read his reviews, and I got a sense of his perspective on film from his reviews, and he's just a guy filled with heart. And
I'll tell you what, Roger, my experience with Roger was 2005, and I had a little short film that wasn't in a festival. I was at the Toronto Film Festival. I was flown up by some producers who were interested in making a deal with me on something, and I took some meetings while I was there, but they gave me tickets to one of their movies that the producers were in the actual festival. When we got there early, my partner and I at the time sat down and we looked up and I'm like, oh my God, that's Roger Ebert sitting in the corner in the back of the theater. And we just, before the movie started, we walked up to him and said, Mr. Ebert, we're big fans, blah, blah, blah. And honestly, I just wanted to say hi to him. Like, I had no intention of doing anything. And I kept talking to him and we kept saying like, oh, we did this movie and we did this thing with this digital camera and shot at this and this and this. And all of a sudden he's like, "Can I take a picture of you?" And I'm like, "Sure, Mr. Ebert, you could take a picture of me." And in my head, I was so ignorant of what was going on. I just said, "I know I can ask him for a picture now." That was like the biggest takeaway I was getting at that moment in time. And he's like, "Your story sounds like a really nice thing for my blog." And I like, "Would you like to see the movie?" And I whipped it out the DVD, and I was like, I had it right there, and I handed it to him. And he's like, "Sure, sure, sure." And by the time we landed back in South Florida, he had already watched it and reviewed it and put it on in an article on his website. And and then the phone started ringing. It was hilarious to
Oh,
watch.
wow.
It was really interesting. A lot of people, a lot of people took notice after Mr. Ebert. And all I'll ever say is about Mr. Ebert was he was kind to a filmmaker when he didn't need to be. He truly was a champion of independent filmmakers. He loved independent filmmakers. He loved movies in a way that was as pure as I've ever seen.
Mhm.
And I will never ever forget the kindness of a giant, because he was a giant in our industry, to be kind to an absolute nobody for no reason whatsoever. And he was even so gracious to give me a positive review of my film, which I'm sure he was just trying to be nice. So
No,
it
but he
was,
doesn't, he liked it, and he wanted to write about it.
yeah, I just
Uh,
thought it was really, I thought it was one of the highlights of my filmmaking career without
oh,
question.
absolutely. Man, cheers to that. That's awesome. Um, few more things about you, and Broken. It went on. It was an overnight success. It broke even the first time you launched it, and went
On
on to
DVD, yeah.
sell
Hmm.
5,000 units worldwide.
Hmm.
But you were still frustrated, and that you saw fellow filmmakers being chewed up by the film business. So you went on to launch the Indie Film Hustle, a
Hmm.
website dedicated to educating filmmakers and artists on how to survive and thrive in the film business. Um, then you launched the Indie Film Hustle podcast, becoming the #1 podcast on Apple Podcasts. And you also host the popular screenwriting Bulletproof Screenwriting,
Hmm.
and coined the term film trapreneur.
Yeah, the film entrepreneur.
Film trapreneur. So welcome, Alex.
Thank you, my friend. Thank you.
Um, I saw that on March 9th on Indie Film Hustle. You reported on COVID and what was
Mhm.
coming out of Vancouver. On April 10th, you reported that Film Trooper had closed shop.
Yeah.
Um, 2 months, 8 weeks have gone by. What's been the hardest part of all this for you, your business, your family, the industry, as you see it?
For me personally, it's just the lack of I liked traveling. I liked going to film festivals. I like going to markets. I like seeing, doing talks and meeting people, which is now pretty much gone and probably will be gone for the rest of the year. At least in my world, I'm not jumping on a plane anytime in the near future. Um, and who knows what's going to happen next year. So it's going to be at least 6 to 18 months before things start to even have a resemblance of where it was before. And it will never be the way it was before. Very much like 9/11. After 9/11, the world changed. And this is even a bigger, more impactful worldwide event than we had with 9/11. And the world will never be the same. The way we shoot and production will never be the same. The way businesses run, the way attitudes have changed, the way habits have changed, viewing habits, how content is consumed, how we do business. I've been hearing from the agencies, talking to big agents at the agencies, and they're just like, I don't even understand why would I jump into a car and drive an hour and a half across town to take a 30-minute meeting when I could just do that on Zoom? Like it's just it doesn't make any sense. That's just the old way of doing things.
Sure.
Where now all these they're getting so much more work done. They're taking so many more meetings. They're getting more deals done, and it's going to change the way we do business in this town specifically, but around the world. And as far as my business is concerned, I'm very blessed. It's actually been doing very, very well. A lot of people are home. So they want to educate themselves. They want to, find things to do, and start following that passion that it's been burning in their, belly. And then they find one of my websites or one of the things I do. And I've been very blessed when it comes to that. The other big struggle is just having kids at home all the time. I mean, I
Thus the
love them.
wine at 3 o'clock.
I love them. I love them, but my wife and I just looked at each other. There's no summer camp this year. There's no summer camp. Arguably there's not going to be any school coming in the fall. I don't feel comfortable sending my kids to school, without a vaccine and or cure and or treatment, and or something else. And even if it was tomorrow, it's still, before there's I'm calling it like the hangover. Like even if Dr. Fauci shows up tomorrow and says, we've got it, we're good, just go to CVS, pick up this pill and you're out the door, it's still going to take 3 months or so 3 to 6 months before people can just get back to being comfortable around other human beings again.
Sure.
This is unheard of what's going on. And it's once in a generation. It's never happened in human history at this level with this kind of population, with this kind of technology. So it's that thing that we're going to be asked about when we're older.
Yeah.
You were around in 2020. Like, what was it like? I'm like, oh, sit down, kiddos. I'll tell you the whole story. But this is that moment. Like people ask, like, where were you in 9/11? It's one of those those events in human history that if you were alive, where were you when JFK got shot? Where were you when things like that happened?
Right.
Those are those moments. And we are definitely in one of those moments right now.
I was on with the filmmaker just before this, and he's like, "Yeah, this is like when people used to talk about getting through the Great Depression, in the 20s." And yeah, where were you then? Or what you had to do to get through that.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, and right now, to be honest with you, we have still not seen the worst of it, I don't think. And I'm not talking about the disease. I'm talking about the impact, the economic impact. I still think we're just in the infancy of what's really happening. So, I've heard on an industry standpoint and on a world standpoint that we're not going to be able to get back. We're not going to, the economy is probably not going to get back on track fully for 3, 4, 5, 6 years. Depending, to get fully back where it was. Our industry, I'm hearing from people inside the system that production is not even thought about for real until next summer. Like that's when things are going to start to crank up again. There might be some shows here and there, but I mean, the studios have shut down all their major productions because they're trying to figure out how to shoot again.
right.
Like how do you shoot? And Tyler Perry has his thing going on down in Atlanta, which sounds great, but he's a very unique scenario where he's basically quarantining his crew on his back lot so they can't leave. And they house them there for 2 or 3 weeks and he can shoot a ton of content that way. But I think it's in Australia or New Zealand or somewhere where there was a plan on how to actually shoot, setting out there's sectors, like there's 8 crew members in this pocket and 8 crew members in that pocket, and they can't overlap. And if one gets sick, then they just remove that pocket. It's just a weird thing. And like love scenes are pretty much out of the picture. And touchy feel, it's a very unique place we're at. But the technology that Mandalorian has been using, I think, might be a savior for us.
What's that?
Well, they're basically doing virtual real-time environments. So you walk on the set and it's just a big screen, but there's a couple guys in the back with a computer who's running a live simulation, very much like a video game. But wherever the camera moves, the perspective changes. So if you watched Mandalorian, any exterior shots were done inside of a soundstage, and
Mm.
not with green screen. It's live, so it's in camera. So there's no rendering out afterward. There's no real comping afterwards. So it's done. I mean, depending on the scale of the size of the shot, but generally speaking, like all those desert scenes and when he's run, all of that was done in a stage,
Yeah.
very isolated. So it's like, two characters and, very sparse crew. So it could be a way moving forward on the big budget side, not on the indie side, but on the big budget side. So look, we're in uncharted territories. It's really interesting to see what's going to happen.
Absolutely. So one of the things we focus on, if there was one word to describe the Northeast Filmmakers Lab, it's relationship.
Mhm.
And the other word that we encourage filmmakers to focus on is audience. And you were talking with, you had a guest on, I forget his name, but he's one of your regulars.
RB?
Yeah. And he was talking about, like, right now, like, if it's really all about relationship. Could you talk
Yes.
about that and how important that is to filmmakers, what they can be doing right now during this pause?
I mean, look, right now there is access to people that you might have never had access to because they're at home. I've had interviews. I just had Barry Sonnenfeld, the director of Men in Black, on the show. He's at home. There's people that you could get access to that might not have, you would never be able to get access to before. So trying to build those relationships in any way you can, in an authentic way, is helpful. I think what RB was trying to talk about is that those relationships that you've built already are what's going to help you moving forward now. So all that work that you might have done over the past 5 years of building those relationships, you can pick up the phone and go, okay, I need this. We could do this. How can we work with that? And start helping each other that way. I think that the biggest misnomer that filmmakers have is that the hardest part of the filmmaking process is making your film. And it's not. Arguably, it's fairly one of the easier parts of the process. Making money with your movie, building an audience with your movie, understanding marketing, that is very complex because that is something that's uncharted territories for filmmakers in most cases. Where filmmaking, we've been watching making of filmmaking, behind the scenes since DVDs and my generation Laserdisc were out. And we've been watching it and we're very educated in that space. But once the final cut's locked, that's where most filmmakers, I'm good, I'm done. And that's where everyone fails because
Right.
at that point, if you don't understand where you're going to make your money, how you're going to get this distributed, how you're going to generate revenue from it, how you're going to generate recurring revenue for it, not just a check, but like a recurring revenue stream from it or multiple recurring revenue streams. If you don't understand that, then you will fail, especially in the new world economy or the new film world economy, as I call it, that we're in and that we're going to. The traditional film distribution space, in my opinion, is dying a very slow and miserable death. And to be honest with you, good riddance, because it's never been a friend to the independent filmmaker. As far back as the 30s and 40s, we've all heard that story of, oh, the distributor screwed me. Oh, I got screwed by the distributor. Oh, I never got paid. Oh, my film was stolen from me. We've all heard those stories. We all know people have done that. So there has to be a change. There has to be a new way of doing things. And I think what has happened with COVID is that it's heightened that and it's sped things up, where I feel that the whole industry was kind of in a bubble, and specifically the film distribution space was being held up by basically, it was a house of cards. And I've been saying this for a while now, Rome is burning, it's burning. Rome is burning. And out of the ashes will come out something new, something different for our industry. And COVID is just a giant, mountain tidal wave of gasoline that's come into this fire, and it's happening more and more. I promise you, within this next 6 to 8 months, 6 months to a year, you're going to start seeing distributors go under, and just filmmakers going to be affected by it. It happened in 2008 in lesser circumstances than where we're at right now. So it's going to happen now because they were scared. They were not making money. They're trying to figure things out because all the revenue streams that they known are gone. Like international market, well, that was shut down for a while and it's still not really come back. Cannes, that's pretty much the Cannes film market, that's gone. I doubt that AFM is going to be running this year. So that kind of revenue stream has changed. Now it has to, they have to figure out another way to do that. DVD is pretty much gone. And that was the cash cow for over a decade. Right. So now it's streaming, and streaming doesn't pay a whole lot, unless you get those sweetheart deals at Netflix or Hulu or one of the other big streaming platforms. But generally speaking, TVOD is dead. So transactional video on demand, no one's really renting anymore. It's rare. Maybe the big studio stuff, but not the indies, unless you have an audience and you could drive traffic and so on. So SVOD is another place you're making money. But look, Amazon's paying what, a penny an hour now? So that's going away. So the only real money right now is AVOD, which is advertising video on demand, or ad supported video on demand. And that is where the money is. But does that justify $1 million, $2 million budget? I don't know. So that's where the world was pre-COVID. That was where everything I just said was pre-COVID. So now add the stress of an entire industry shutting down, revenue streams shutting down. And this is where I think that this whole concept of Robin's burning is these dominoes will start to fall. And they started happening last year. I was involved with that whole distributor thing. The aggregator, the film aggregator that shut down, and I broke that story, and it affected thousands of filmmakers, and millions of dollars were magically disappeared. So it's already starting. Tug just went down a few months ago. The aggregation company that does theatrical or did theatricals for independent filmmakers, that went under because of poor management and the business model didn't work. So I'm a big proponent of not relying on the system. I like to create my own system. I like to create my own ecosystem. And that's why I came up with the whole filmtrepreneur method, which is how to generate multiple revenue streams from your film, where the exhibition of the film is just one of multiple revenue streams that are coming in, and you control those revenue streams. That's the big thing. You control the other revenue streams that are coming in from your film. And that's what I think that is the only way independent film will survive in the coming years. It has to. The system is not worth. And if you have any questions of where this is all going to go, just look at the music industry. It's the exact same thing that happened in the music industry. It used to cost $18 to get a song on a CD back in the day or on a tape. And now music is essentially free. So the artists are really struggling. And the only way they were making money was touring. That stopped. So, media is a very interesting place to be in today's world. So you have to think outside the box.
Totally. This makes me wonder whether you've got a sequel to the book.
Oh, I have two already. I already have two in my head. When I released the book, Rise of the Filmtrepreneur, I released it in December. By January, February, I already needed to do a version 2. Not because things were outdated. It's just more information came in. More things have been happening. And now, I'm probably going to wait till next year and see after what happens to write the sequel to it. Because I have a sequel already to it. I already have things. I discovered multiple other revenue streams, other business models within the Filmtrepreneur method that I didn't talk about in the book, that I've discovered after the book got released. They're like, oh, well, I'm hearing this story of this filmmaker. And that's another example, or that's another way. It's a really endless amount of ways you can make money. It's just I always like finding case studies. So I like to talk to different filmmakers. So I already have 3, 4, 5 different case studies alone, and how things have changed just from December of last year to today. There's so many more ways to make money. There's so many more platforms to use. There's so many more online companies that you can leverage to give yourselves a fighting chance to generate revenue.
In your book, you talk about bringing massive value to your audience.
Yes.
What's an example, or could you give us an example of a filmmaker practicing that and thinking about their audience in advance?
It all depends on the niche. So the basis of everything in the film entrepreneur method is the niche. The riches are in the niches, as I like to say. And the niche is, instead of trying to generate, go after a large, broad audience, which is what the studios do, you actually have to go the opposite way and start finding that smaller group of people that you can actually reach, you can actually access, and then provide massive value to them. And that value can be in a multiple different ways. You can educate them, you can entertain them, or you can inspire them. And those are basically the 3 major ways that you can create massive value. And you don't have to create all the content yourself. You can be a curator of that content. So as long as you're able to kind of bring the audience together in one way, shape, or form, whether if it's with your content, with somebody else's content as a curator, or combination of all 3, then you'll have access to that audience. And then when you're ready to sell them something or provide them a resource that they are looking for, not like, hey man, you want to buy this watch kind of thing. It's more of, you are interested in, like I use in my book, you're interested in being a vegan. Okay, well, do you want a vegan online cooking course by this amazing vegan chef? Would you like some cookbooks? Would you like how to be an athlete, how to do a workout, workout routines for vegans and plant-based meals? And do you want to talk to a consultant about it? And you start building out all these different, products and services around that niche audience, where you're providing massive value to them. You're helping them on their journey. And some stuff you charge for, and many things you don't. Like in my business, I give away 95% of everything I do on a daily basis is pretty much given away. So all I have is a massive amount of free resources for my audience, which is filmmakers and screenwriters. And then I charge for 5% of what I do, my work, whether that be through courses, through consulting, through other different revenue streams that I have created for my company. But if anyone ever has issues, they're like, oh man, your course is too expensive. I'm like, there's 15,000 hours of free content. Knock yourself out. Like, I don't know what else to tell you, brother. Like, I mean, like look, go to YouTube. I literally got 600 episodes of podcast I could easily charge for those interviews. Some of those interviews with these big, really high-end industry people that I talk to, I could easily charge $5 a pop, and I would sell all day, but I don't. That's not part of my business model. I want to give as much as I can, and then charge for some of the more premium stuff. But that's how you provide massive value to your audience.
Great example. And where can folks find the book? We have one website, filmbizbook.com.
That's the best way to get a hold of it. It has Amazon's link there, has Barnes and Noble. It's available in paperback, ebook, and audiobook. If you want a free copy of it on audiobook and you don't have an Audible account, go to that site. You can sign up for Audible and get the book for free as well. So you can sign up for it there for free and download your book. It's really, it became a bestseller almost within 2-3 days after I released it on Amazon, and it's been selling consistently. Even more so nowadays, people are really looking at it. And it's done very, very well. I'm very humbled and blessed by the response to it. It is really helping a lot of people. And that was my goal with the book.
That's awesome. I can't help but think that things are broken. Like the system's broken. And we're going back to the early days, one-on-one, independence. Is there a silver lining in this for independent filmmakers who, if they're smart, can put on a show and make their money back in the new streaming models?
I think that anytime there's a disruption in any industry, there is opportunity. Like they say, you don't buy what you buy when there's blood in the water. I think it was the JP Morgan, when there's blood in the streets, that's when you buy. And that's, in regards to economics, that makes sense. So right now we're going through a disruption. I think there's still a lot of what's going on. Nobody knows what's going to happen. Nobody really has an idea of truly where we're going to be in 30 days, let alone in 6 months. We really don't. We have ideas, we have concepts, but this is the moment where opportunities present themselves that were not there before. Doors will open that were not available to you before as an independent filmmaker. And if you're smart, like there was this one kid, I swear, when I read this, I was like, well, this makes sense. He became the number 2 movie in all the US box office because the box office was shut down. So he pumped it and became the number 2 release. And it's like a $100,000 movie or something like that. But he's like, hey, I got the number 2 release. And I was like, this is some, I can't believe this did this. But you know what? That's an opportunity. What will happen to that movie? I have no idea. It's funny to listen to, but that's an opportunity. That's an example of an opportunity where, a perfect example, Tiger King. Is Tiger King what it became if we're not in quarantine? I don't know. I don't know. Is Disney Plus really go past 50 or 60 million subscribers so quickly in the last few months because of without quarantine? I don't know. Would the studio system be now trying out direct to streaming premium VOD at $20 a head without this, skipping the theatrical experience completely without quarantine? I doubt it. They've been talking about it forever, but they were scared to death to try it. But the second that they did, oh, look, Trolls 2 made $100 million.
Right.
And now AMC is like, well, we're not going to show anything. I'm like, dude, you're going bankrupt. Shut up. Like, I'm sorry, AMC. If you're listening, you have no power here. The theaters have no power here. They have to negotiate with the studios because the studios have the content. They're just an exhibitor. And there's thousands of other options. And streaming is becoming another viable option. Would this model work with Avengers, the next Avengers? I don't know. Would it make 700 million? Could it? Absolutely. Mike Tyson's fights used to pull in $200 million over a weekend, if you remember correctly, on pay-per-view.
Oh yeah.
So there is a model there. There is something there. What it is yet, we don't know. It's interesting.
Mm-hmm. When in your book, you talk about the return on investment versus the ROT, return on time.
Mm-hmm.
You clarify that for
us. So ROI is return on investment. ROT is return on time. So ROI is exactly what it says. It's what is your return on the money you're putting in? So you have to think about that when you're making a movie. I know a lot of people, when they're making movies, a lot of filmmakers are artists. I was one of them. I am one of them. I'm an artist. I don't need to worry about things like money. And and I always tell filmmakers, well, unfortunately, you have chosen a very expensive medium to express your artistic endeavors. So, if you just bought a guitar and go play it in the corner somewhere, well, go ahead, knock yourself out. It's not that expensive to do so. But because you've chosen an extremely expensive medium to explore your artistic endeavors, you have a responsibility to, unless you're independently wealthy and don't care about money, then you have a responsibility to make a return on that investment, whether that be for your investors, for your mom and dad who gave you the money, to yourself to keep going. Because if you spend $100,000 and you pull in $1,000, that's not a business model. I literally was at AFM this last year, and I had someone come up to me and they made a $150,000 movie, and they had just sold it to a distributor with an MG, which is a minimum guarantee. And I go, what was your MG? He goes, well, we got 30,000. And I'm like, did you give them all the rights? And they said, well, yeah, most of them for like 2 years. I'm like, so you basically gave your movie away for $30,000, but it cost you 150. He goes, yeah. And he was happy. He was like ecstatic about that. So that's where you understand the model is broken. The whole system is busted. If that guy said, it's like, hey, you know what? I just spent $100 and I got $20 back. This is amazing. That is not a business that's sustainable, guys. I hate to tell you. So you need to understand your ROI. If you're going to put $10 down, how are you going to get those $10 back? Does that extra day of the techno crane on set, what is it going to bring to the bottom line? I know artistically it's going to be a beautiful shot that you're creating. It's very Martin Scorsese. It's going to last for 9 minutes. I get it all. But will it bring back the cost that it costs to bring that guy and the dolly out there, the crane out there? That's the thing you have to ask you. Could you figure another way out to keep the budget lower and still maintain the artistic vision that you're looking for? That's the balancing act that you have to do, because I was in a meeting once with an agent, and he said, when I'm looking for a client as a director, I need a politician, a businessman, and an artist. And those are the 3 elements I need for a client. And I thought that was absolutely brilliant, because if you look at all of the big directors that everyone follows and everyone knows, the Nolans, the Finchers, the Spielbergs, the Coppolas, the Lucas, all these guys, they're politicians, they're businessmen, and they're artists, generally speaking. The ones who aren't the politicians are the ones who, the second they have a failure, are gone, and you never hear from them again. But you look at people like Spielberg, who is the epitome of those 3 things. He had failures, very big ones. I remember in 92, I think it was, it's over for I remember here, I was in high school. I was working at the video store. So I was really in depth into film culture at the time. And Hollywood was saying, oh, it's over for Spielberg. He's done. He's past his prime.
That sci-fi picture that he kind of did like on his childhood or something like that. I remember.
Yeah, Amblin. Yeah, Amblin. Yeah. But yeah, no. So 91, he's like, oh, it's over. It's over. He did Hook. Hook was a bomb. I love Hook, by the way, but bombed and all of this stuff. And then all of a sudden in 93, Schindler's List and Jurassic Park come out the same year. So boom, but he's had ups and downs his entire career, where other filmmakers of his generation, when they have those downs, they just, you don't really hear from them again. So you have to have those 3 elements of politician, businessman, and artist, and they have to be balanced very, very well.
I love that. That is so great. I'd never heard that. So
yeah, and then ROT is basically return on time. So like, how much return am I actually getting on my time here? Does it cost me, if I'm going to go do something that's going to cost me take 10 hours of my day because I'm going to get it done for free, or if I hire somebody for $100 to do it in an hour because they know what they're doing and they're not bumping around like I would for 10 hours, what's the most sense? Is that a good investment? What could you be doing with those 10 hours? Could you be generating more revenue somewhere else? Could you be creating something else that's going to move your career forward? These are things that filmmakers don't understand a lot of times, and people in general don't. But, like, I bump around a lot. I do a lot of work on Indie Film Hustle myself, and it took me years to bump around doing it. And should I have hired some people to do stuff? Yeah, I probably should have. But now I'm proficient at what I do, so it's much faster. But even then, it's still something that I look into. I have to hire more people. I need to bring in a team to help me to do things. So you have to be thinking about ROT. Like, does it make sense for you to be doing this thing, like a plumbing? I spent 3 hours the other day fixing a toilet, and there was YouTube videos. Now we're in quarantine, so I have an excuse, but I was like, I would have much rather just spend $50, $70 to have a plumber out here. In 15 minutes, it would have been done.
I'm with you 100% on that one. Hey, I just wanted to shout out to Chris here. If you have a question, Chris Everett, post it on chat here, or maybe even open up so you can have a chance to talk directly with Alex.
Yeah.
So this seems like it's a pretty good time if you're someone like me that's sitting on footage for documentaries that have not yet been completed. We were talking about like hours and hours of footage. What else is this a good time for filmmakers to do? I know you have the Indie Film Hustle Academy.
Mhm.
Could you talk a
Yeah.
little bit about that?
Yeah, so Indie Film Hustle Academy is the new platform I just launched a few days, like last week actually, and it is a place for high-end film education and screenwriting education, and that's where I'm going to be holding all of our high-end courses, the courses that are really built for people taking their knowledge to the next level, and I focused a lot of energy on it. I'm partnering with some of the best instructors on the planet. We have a course by an ASC cinematographer, which is arguably one of the best cinematography courses I've ever taken. I've taken many of them. We have one with a veteran independent film producer. It's a best-selling class of ours. Even in the last week, we've sold a ton of them when I launched about how to become an independent filmmaker. Excuse me, how to be an independent film producer. So it takes you through the nuts and bolts of actually producing with $20,000 worth of contracts and so on. There's so many things that IFH Academy has to offer, and we will be releasing new courses. Hopefully, monthly is my goal, to release something every month or so, a brand new course, new launch, new everything. And then we also have Indie Film Hustle TV, which is the world's first streaming platform for filmmakers and screenwriters. So it's like Netflix for filmmakers, and there's a ton of courses. We have over 2,000 videos on courses, documentaries about filmmaking, movies about filmmaking, as well as workshops, seminars, and also some really top end courses as well. And it's available on Apple TV, Roku, Amazon, on apps and everything like that. So that's another place to start. And that's very affordable. We're selling it, I think, at this point for $100 for the year. So it's like $8, $9 a month. And
Wow.
you've got access to a lot of information. I mean, like I would have killed personally. I would have killed for something like this when I was growing up. I was like digging into laser discs for this kind of stuff. But it is a treasure trove as well. So those are the two major educational platforms that I have: Indie Film Hustle TV and Indie Film Hustle Academy, and of course all the other stuff I have as far as my other websites and stuff that are free options.
That's awesome. And Luke has posted a link here and there on our chat, I believe, earlier. Luke, if you want to also share any of those other links that Alex mentioned, I think that'd be great. I'm going to bring Chris on. Chris, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hey,
All
Christopher, how you doing?
Hey, how's it going?
Fire away. What's your question for Alex?
Yeah, I'm a huge fan.
Thank you.
Avid listener of the program. I've always been trying to dabble in ancillary products, for my film projects. And I guess from your expertise and what you're seeing out here right now, what are some ancillary products that people are, I guess, kind of wanting, from films right now?
Well, right now this is a very weird time to be building building a film entrepreneurial model is difficult in the normal scenarios, let alone this. Making money with movies is difficult normally than it is right now. But like right now, specifically online education, anything you can wrap around a movie with online education is a great ancillary product. I know that doesn't work a lot for narratives, but depending on the kind of narrative, depending on kind of audience you've been able to build up, what the movie is about, if you got an MMA movie or a movie with a lot of fighting, online education about fighting techniques or things like that. If you partner with someone, the stunt coordinator who did the movie or something along those lines, that's another revenue stream. Any kind of education, whether that be books, online videos, audio courses, things like that, really great. Again, more for documentary and specific niches than it is for narratives. But tell me, what's the kind of genre or niche of the movie that you're thinking about?
I've it's mostly documentaries that I do.
Okay, great.
And actually, you brought up the MMA. I'm actually finishing up a martial arts documentary, so that worked.
Yeah. So if you have a martial arts documentary, if you're able to either one or two things, you can either build your own online course around martial arts or an aspect of martial arts, or meditation for the fight, meditating fighter. There's so many different things that you can create yourselves, or you can become an affiliate for products that already exist in the marketplace.
Right.
So that means that these courses already are out there, and then you become an affiliate for them, where you will get a small fee for recommending their product, and not even small. Sometimes it's fairly reasonable, meaning like you can get 20 to 50% of the value of the course. If you're selling a course for $100 or $200 and you're getting 50%, that's basically $100. So does it make sense for you to incur the cost of building an entire course and selling it for $200? Or should you try to test the market and see how many of these courses you could actually sell that somebody else's? And if you start seeing that you're making 10, 15 grand a month selling this other person's course, then maybe it's time for you to invest in your own course, because that means your audience is primed for this kind of stuff. So those are things good. And then if it's something around MMA, oh my God, man, there's so many product lines that you could be an affiliate for and or create yourself. Low-hanging fruit's always affiliates. So that means you can promote other people's products, other known companies, to an audience that's rabid for that kind of content and or products. So if you're a martial art fighter, you're going to need gloves or gear or all that kind of stuff. You're not going to be able to build your own right now, meaning like your own line of, boxing gloves or MMA gloves or whatever, but you could easily become an affiliate for that. And that's just another revenue stream. That's just like passive income that just keeps coming in. That's a really good way to start generating revenue. And it's a revenue stream that you can control, and you're not, you're not the beck and call of a distributor who's maybe going to give you a check. At least this way you're creating multiple partnerships with multiple different products or companies that you can start generating a lot. And man, I know people who make a lot of money with affiliate marketing, like obscene, like talking in the 5 figures, 6 figures a month kind of scenario in affiliate marketing. And if you're smart and you build up that audience, it's easy to do. It's not complicated. It's easy, but it's hard, meaning that it's simple. It's simple, but it's not easy. That's the way. It's simple, but it's not easy.
Right. Cool. Hey, this helps a lot. I really appreciate it.
No worries, my friend. Good luck to you.
Thanks.
Chris, great question. Thanks for joining us. So the book, The Rise of the Film Entrepreneur, How to Turn Your Independent Film into a Money-Making Business. There it is.
Yes.
Tell us, where can people get this? And tell us what's coming up next for you in terms of your podcast, anything else that's on the horizon.
So you get the book like before at filmbizbook.com, filmbizbook.com. That's the best place to get the book. You can get links to Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and Audible for audiobooks there as well. And it's available ebook, paperback, and audiobook. Also, my first book, Shooting for the Mob, which is this book on how I almost made a $20 million movie for the mafia when I was 26. That's also available there as well. So if you go there underneath, you can check that book out. It is a allegory of what not to do when chasing your filmmaking dream. And it is a pretty insane story. So it's like the other side of Rebel Without a Crew. So if you ever read Rebel Without a Crew, that's the positive side. I'm the negative side of like, this is how it goes completely wrong. And it just crashes and burns. And as you read it, you're like, is he going to make it? Like physically, is he going to make it as this mafia guy was threatening me on a daily basis for over a year, my life. So
and
that's
here we are. You're talking. There we go.
I'm talking. So it's kind of a buzzkill, but when you're reading it, okay. I've heard many people who read it, they're like, I know you're alive, Alex, but man, as I'm reading this, I really don't know if you're going to make it. So,
wow.
So that was my first book that I released last year as well. And as far as what's coming, going forward, I'm going to be putting together a course on film distribution. I'm calling it Film Distribution Confidential, which is going to be the inside look at everything film distribution, all the tricks and dirty tactics that predatory film distributors use to screw over filmmakers. And I want to put out something there that can really help filmmakers and protect filmmakers in that process, because there really isn't anything out there that really addresses what's happening today. So things in contracts to look for and things like that. Obviously you always want an entertainment attorney, but these are things to start the conversation. and in negotiations. And there's things in this course I can tell you already that it's insane. I've heard so much. I've studied so much about this, and I've talked to so many people in the industry. My mouth drops with all the scams and tactics, legal tactics and scams that they do to screw over filmmakers. So I thought I wanted to put something out there that was like the definitive course on film distribution through the traditional platforms, like going through a distributor, going through a sales agent or producer's rep, and what that world looks like. And then after that, I'm going to be doing the film entrepreneur masterclass, if you will, which is going to break down, go much deeper than what I do in the book on all the things and how, like a literal blueprint on how to build out a film. So those are the next two big courses and projects I'll be working on. And I'm writing a book sometime this year. I don't know when I'm going to start writing. Maybe in the summer I'll start writing it. I don't know, but I got another 4 or 5 books already in my head that I want to write. But we'll see what's going to come out later this year. This whole year it's a weird time, man. 2020, I just, like they said, can we just put 2020 in like a bowl of rice or something to see if it can get fixed? Because
let it sit there.
Let's let it sit there. Let all the moisture go out, because obviously it's not working. So there's something wrong with 2020. Can we just return it? I don't know. Can Amazon take it back? I don't know. But 2020 is definitely one of those years, and we're still in an election year. People keep forgetting that, but we're going to be in an election year as well. So that's always fun, regardless on what side of the fence you're on.
Right.
So that as well. So I'm just staying on my hustle, staying in my lane, and trying to provide as much value as I can to an audience and to a tribe that is, a lot of people out there are scared. They don't know what's going to happen. I know a lot of people who work in the industry here in Hollywood that, are out of work right now.
Yeah.
And we really don't know. And when things start to come back, it's not going to be back full force. So there's still going to be a lot of people out of work, even when things start to creep back in. And, I know there's a lot of talk right now, the whole country's opening up, but, people are talking, I hear in the news, they're like, 64% raise in Georgia ever since in corona cases. Like, this is going to have an effect. There's going to be repercussions on this. So same thing goes with Hollywood. And Hollywood, as you know, is extremely skittish.
Very fearful industry. Yes.
Very fearful industry. So the last thing a Disney or a Warner wants to do is open up production and someone gets sick and dies on their set because they didn't take the proper precautions just for the sake of making a movie. So it's really... it's a really interesting time, Mike.
So the martini question, if you've got 2 more minutes for us, and thank you for your
I've got many. Don't worry, I'm good.
The martini is, I ask everybody, if we're going to come out of this with a renaissance, how's it going to happen? What's missing right now? What do we need? How do we come out of this? Could there be a gold rush out of this? Where is that going to be? How do you position yourself for that when that comes about?
There's two trains here. There's the studio train and the independent train. The studio system, I feel that there's going to be some major studios that will be acquired. There's no question within the next year, major studios will be acquired. I think Sony is ripe for it. I think Paramount's ripe for it. I think Lionsgate's ripe for it. And we got some very big players outside with a lot of cash. Google, Amazon, Facebook, Apple. These people have obscene amounts of billions in cash waiting. And like right now, Amazon's thinking of buying AMC because AMC is ripe right now. So there's going to be major acquisitions coming in the next 12 to 18 months. There's going to be a lot of damage. There's a lot of companies are going to go under. A lot of institutions are going to start going under, as it's already happening. You're already seeing companies go bankrupt left and right. Big retail stores, and it's going to happen. It's going to happen with everybody in our industry specifically. So I think at the end, the studio system is going to come out of this with a new business model, meaning that now streaming will become a much bigger part of their release strategy and windowing. I think that the movie theaters are going to have very little legs to stand on because
Wow.
they don't have any power. You know, the only power was perceived power. Like, without us, you can't make $200 million. Well, maybe we can, you know, and we don't need you anymore. So I don't want them to go away, but we're going to dictate the rules on this. So if you want our big movies, which is what you need to keep your business and selling that popcorn, you're going to do what we say, not the other way around. And there's going to have to be a negotiations. If not, too bad. Now, with that said, that also opens up opportunities for independent filmmakers, where there's a lack of studio content, these there's thousands of theaters and thousands of screens in the United States alone that need something up there. So independents might have an opportunity to screen theatrically in a way that we weren't before, because now we're not competing with the next Avengers possibly, or the next Trolls movie, or the next Bond movie as much. So there might be a marketplace for theaters, if they're smart, to start partnering with mid-level and lower-level distributors who can provide that content in their theaters. But that's a new scenario. We don't know how that's going to work out. As far as independents are concerned, what I would like to see happen is there's a new model that comes up that's more supportive to the artist, more supportive to the creative, gives them a fighting chance to have a sustainable career. I'm not talking about getting rich, man. I'm just talking about paying the bills. You know, if you make a movie and, you know, you could generate enough money to put food on the table for your family and pay everybody that was involved. That's what we're looking for. I'm not looking about the $1 million, $2, $3, $5, $10 billion that you have to make, just something that's sustainable. So I'm hoping that a new model is presented. I feel that the film entrepreneur method is one model that could definitely work. It's not for everybody. A lot of people I've talked to, I've had pushback from filmmakers. Like, I don't want to work on an online course. I'm an artist. I'm like, you go ahead and be an artist. Knock yourself out. I'm not saying you have to do this. I'm just saying this is an option. I'm also saying if you don't figure something else out and you think it's the traditional way is going to protect you and keep you going, you're a fool. So whatever that situation is, figure it out for yourself. It might be the film entrepreneur model. It might be other avenues. I don't know. All I do know is that filmmakers are making less money with their movies. Distributors are making less money with their movies. The marketplace is changing, and everyone's trying to figure out how to generate revenue with their films. Everybody, including distributors. At AFM last year when I went, I literally was in a meeting with a distribution company, and I asked them, I straight up, because they were like pitching me on who they were, and you know, can you get your filmmakers to come to us and all this kind of stuff. And I just turned to them, I go, you guys really have no idea what you're doing, do you? I literally said that. I'm like, you have no idea where the revenue is going to come from, do you? Like, all your old models are broken, so you really don't know. And she's like, yeah, no, we're just throwing up everything against the wall as much as we can to see what sticks. That was a quote. I was just like, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And they're like, yeah, we're just trying to acquire as many titles as we can for free so we can build up our library, so then we have negotiating powers with streaming services. That was it. It was straight up honesty. You know, straight up honesty. So that's what filmmakers need to understand. That model is not built for them. Never has been. It's never been built for the filmmaker. So they need to create their own model. And I'm hoping that, you know, eventually touring with your film again might be a thing like the olden days, generating, you know, events around it, doing the regional cinema model where you're creating films for a region specifically is another thing.
So can I jump on that?
Yeah.
I lied. It wasn't the martini, because you're hitting on something that I've been thinking about. And I'll just tell you the long story of this. When I came back from Russia, I had made a short film that brought my ass all the way over to Russia. And they had this lab. And that's when I came back. I said, if Russia can do it, I can. Why can't we do this lab here? It started the Capital Cinema Cultural Exchange, which led to the Northeast Filmmakers Lab. But what I left with was the European and Eastern European model is how the different countries get together, country A, country B, maybe country C kicks in 10%, but they figure out a way to fund content on a regular basis, and people are busy and working. As here in the United States, we have to make a movie that is such a wide general audience to at least 48 to 50 states. I came back and I thought, why is the United States not regional? Make a movie. And now you're seeing, just in response to this COVID, you got 5 northeastern states, 5 or 6 states in the northeast
banded together. Yeah.
You got the West Coast getting together, and I'm thinking, okay, you got your tax incentives if they can hold them. Why not make a movie, a smaller picture that can make its money back within its region? It doesn't have to play to the entire United States. And I wanted to ask you, is that a viable idea?
Oh God, yes. I have an example of it in my book, and then I've since then have heard 3 or 4 more case studies about it.
Mhm.
Absolutely, it's all about budget. It's about how expensive is your movie. If you're making $1 million budget for your local town, unless your town can support that budget, it's probably not going to be successful. But if you're able to generate content at a much more affordable rate, $10,000, $20,000, $50,000, which you're not going to get rich up front with it, but generating more. Like, I know a guy who's in the book who did an event, a horror event called One Must Fall, Antonio Pantoja, excuse me. And he made a movie and he released, he did an event, meaning like he rented out, he 4-walled it. He rented out this beautifully giant screen, one of these old school movie theaters. And he had, I think, like 1,200 people show up. And it was in his town. I think it was in Kentucky. What's the big city in Kentucky?
Lexington or
God, one of those. It's in that area.
Louisville.
It might be Louisville. One of those places down there. And it was it's a big city, but it's a small town equivalently. So he pushed it out locally. He made his money back on his $50,000 budget in one night. In one night, he sold enough tickets to break even. So, and he sold merch. He sold like $6,000 to $8,000 worth of merch there. And he had like special event ones, and he had like VIP tickets with like after parties, and he had all this lined up. It was a business, and he did it just once. He should have done it more than once. And he absolutely made his money back with it, and he generated revenue with it. There's absolutely no reason why you can't do a regional cinema model. It's, I think, again, another one of those things, and another one of those tools in the toolbox of a filmmaker is like, okay, well, this movie I'm going to try to do for vegans, and it's going to be a broad vegan movie. And then my next one's going to be just for my town and the town surrounding it. And if you live in a town that's, I live in LA, so it's a little bit different. But if you live somewhere in the middle of the country, somewhere who really doesn't have a lot of access to movie making, and it's super exciting for them, you could build I had a guest on who had the mayor and the entire town at his disposal. Yeah. And he made this action thriller in the town, and he called the movie the town's name. So it was brilliant, but it looked like some sort of like Heat meets, like Blacklist. I mean, it was really great, great filmmaking, but it was regional. And then he sold it, and then he found the spillover audiences. Eventually he'll be able to get it out to the world as well. Absolutely. There's no reason. You just have to start thinking outside the box as a filmmaker. You cannot think the way they've been teaching you in film school for all these years. Is like, you just got to make the movie and then you just hand it over to some other person to give you a check. That model never really worked. It worked for a handful of people, but it never worked for everybody. You need to find a model that's more sustainable for everybody, and that we can get more voices out there. We can get more stories out there that wouldn't have the opportunity to be told without a new model of some sort. And I think that's what's happening now with COVID. I think when it's all said and done, when the dust starts to settle, because we're still so early on in this, we're still right in the middle, kind of early middle of this thing. That we don't just know. We just don't know where this is going to go. But once the dust settles, once things start to move back in the direction that we're all feeling comfortable with, then I think that's going to be the opportunity. But right now, educate yourself as much as possible. Watch, look, see what's happening, read the trades, understand where things are going. This is a very crucial time in our industry, in the world in general, but in our industry specifically, because if Amazon does buy AMC, for example, that will change the entire landscape of cinema in Hollywood completely. They would own the largest theater chain in the world. So what does that mean from a streaming service that owns it? You know, it's like, what is that going to do to everything?
Wow.
Is that going to open things up? Is it going to shut things off? Who knows? When it comes to Amazon, who knows? They are in, I love them. I use them on a daily basis, but when it comes to filmmakers, they just do what's best for them. That's basically,
that's right.
At the end of the day, Amazon does what's best for them. And the only reason that they treat us as well as they do is because they need us to make that money. But if you look at their numbers, by the way, the sales of, toilet paper and other stuff, that's 30% of their revenue. That's not their core business anymore. The core business is cloud computing. That's where they make all their money. That's the only reason Amazon's profitable, is because the entire internet, I think it's like 40% of the internet runs on their cloud service. Netflix is on there, everybody's on that. I mean, like it's a thing. So if that happens, if Apple finally decides to jump in and buy Sony cash, how is that going to change things? There's just keep an eye on what's happening in the industry and what new platforms are popping up. Quibi was a big thing, and Quibi has kind of fizzled a bit on its launch. I don't think it's out for the count just yet. I think it's bad timing because now everyone's at home and no one's sitting. Not as many people are on their phones because they're not traveling, they're not commuting, they're not doing that kind of stuff. So it was bad timing on Quibi's part. Is there a position for Quibi? Maybe. You just got to keep things going. But at the end of the day, and I'll leave you with this because I could talk for hours. I'll leave you with this. At the end of the day, no matter what technology comes in, no matter what platforms pop up, no matter what revenue streams are presented to filmmakers, at the end of the day, it always comes down to one thing that is evergreen, regardless if it's 1910 or 2010 or whatever that, you know what I'm talking about, 2210. Yeah. If you're able to create a piece of content that is of value to somebody who wants it, that's all that matters. It doesn't matter how the delivery service is. If you have a movie, if you have a product, if you have content of any sort that the audience is emotionally attached to and emotionally wants to watch and consume, it doesn't matter anything else. That is the key element. And cultivating that audience and being of value to an audience will never change. Period. Will never, ever change. It didn't change when we were telling stories around the campfire. The dude that told the best stories around the campfire, they probably took care of him because he was the entertainment. Don't let the lion eat him. Protect that guy. He tells great stories. I promise you. So if you're able to do that, you will survive in any environment, any economic environment. Some of the greatest companies in the world were built in the Great Recession. Netflix came into power during the Great Recession. In the Great Depression, many companies were born in that time. That will happen again. It is a very unique time, but at the end of the day, those are the elements. Provide value to an audience, be of service to an audience, whether that be through your filmmaking, through products, through ancillary services or product lines, and everything else falls away. Everything else falls away. There's always going to be new technology, but that is the core of what a filmmaker should be focused on.
Alex, thank you so much. I really appreciate your 25 years of experience and helping us get through this time. And I really appreciate you being on because this is why we do the show, particularly right now.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you for having me on. It's been an absolute pleasure, Mike. Thank you so much, man.
You're most welcome. And I'd like to stay in touch. Is there a way for filmmakers to stay in touch with you?
I'm very shy. I'm not around the internet at all. So you can't really find me. I'm kind of like Kubrick that way. No, of course not. I'm pretty much everywhere. indiefilmhustle.com is the best way. My personal site, alexferrari.com, if you want consulting or speaking engagements when that comes back or anything like that. If you're interested in screenwriting, bulletproofscreenwriting.tv. If you're interested in more in the filmtrepreneur method, you can go to filmtrepreneur.com. And like we talked before, indiefilmhustle.tv or ifhacademy.com and the books and things like that. But Indie Film Hustle is the hub for everything. So when you get there, you'll find me. Or you could just type my name up in Google. I will show up. I'm like a roach. I can't get killed. I'm always around. I'm like a dirty penny. I just keep showing up.
A lucky dirty penny.
Yes.
Well, thanks again. And thanks to all those who tuned in. And we'll be back on Thursday with Emily Best.
She's awesome.
Seed and Spark.
She's great.
We'll just keep at it. If your business would like to sponsor future episodes, maybe you can't do it now, a year from now, donate at cinemaexchange.org. Thanks again, Alex. Indiefilmhustle.com, everyone. Enjoy, be well, stay healthy, stay connected. This has been Mike Camoin for Check the Gate. Our gate is good. Let's move on, people. Thanks, Alex.
Oh, cool.